nights. Some of the things I've been seeing lately in this area, some of the wooded areas, some transients have decided to settle in there. If they're walking on your property or looking in your windows or knocking on your doors, I would suggest calling 911 so I can come talk with them instead of you maybe confronting them and it escalating into something that we don't need it to escalate into. We recently had an event where that happened, and it could have probably been prevented if they just would have dialed 911 and I could have come and talked to the person and got them off the property and seen what was going on, and maybe, depending on their history, I can investigate that more. We're also getting to that time of year where it's Christmas and packages and putting packages on doorsteps. If you're not at home and you're expecting packages, maybe a post office box might be a good idea so you can have those secured. We haven't had too many issues with that recently, but I'm thinking we're going to get more as we get closer to Christmas and Amazon and that type of stuff. Just trying to think off the top of my head what I've been going on recently. No, most of it is homeless in the woods, and then they are checking for warmer places to be. So they're checking places that don't look like they've been resided in, and they're checking a door, they're checking a window to see if it's open. So securing your doors and windows when you're at work or something like that is a really, really good idea, or when you're on vacation, especially if you're traveling for Thanksgiving or Christmas. There have been some traffic officers that have been running traffic emphases during the day in, Severs Ducey and up near Boeing and that type of thing to help with, especially with the 3, 4, 5 a.m. Boeing commute that come down Glenhaven here, or Glenwood, I'm sorry. Other than that, do you guys have any questions for me as specific to what you've been seeing that maybe you haven't been in response to, or I don't know, I'll just open it up.
So what's the policy on these people that are knocking on these doors? If they're coming to the door demanding money or trying to solicit stuff, do you want the call or do you not want the call?
If it's someone who's knocking on the door soliciting, and you have a no soliciting sign, so let's do this. I'll give you an example. So you have a person who has a clipboard and it looks like they have an ID tag, and they've been going house to house and they're selling something, magazines, dish network. That isn't something I necessarily would need a call for.
Yeah.
But if there's someone who is wearing 4 layers of clothes, looks very dirty, and they're looking in your windows as they're approaching your door, you kind of see this, something raises the hair on the back of your neck or something seems kind of off, then yes, call me and I can come and talk with them and check it out.
Same, and you want a 911 call if you think your package has been stolen?
Yes, or you can go online. It's up to you.
That's what I'm saying.
It's up to you.
So we can get it clarified?
Okay. So if you think your package has been stolen, so here's the delineation or the differentiation in what would happen. You order packages, you're expecting them delivered on a certain day, you check the status, it says delivered, you get to your house, it's not there. You don't know who took it or if it was taken, so you have no real suspect information. Whatever you ordered is under $750, then a much more efficient process would be going to the Everett Police Department website. On the left-hand side, there's a hyperlink that you can file a crime report or a crime tips and that kind of thing, and then it'll walk you through filing a theft report on your own. That way, it can go straight to the detectives and they can look at and review it and they can take it from there. If, let's say you have a ring on the on your door as your doorbell, and you show someone approaching your doorstep, they pick up the package and they leave. So now I have a picture of them, I have a description of them, I may have a description of a car, then I want to respond to that. And I want to do a report, and I'm going to get those pictures from you, and I'm going to upload them and send them to the other officers. And depending on what's going on, it may get sent to the neighboring agencies if they're having similar types of crime with similar descriptions of the people who are taking the packages. So there's the differentiation. The big differentiation is, do we have an idea or maybe a description of who's taking the packages or not? And that would be an officer response if you have some information you can give me other than my package was stolen. The other would be, how much is it worth? If it's worth over $750, I'm going to respond and take a handwritten report. if it's underneath, if it's a $50 package, you have the option. I'm not going to say I'm not going to show up, but you have the option of, on your own time, going online and filing that report. If you would like to talk to an officer in person, call 911, tell them what you have, and it probably won't be the first thing and run lights and sirens, but we will respond and we will talk with you. So yeah, so there's the differentiation between the online reporting and the in-person reporting. Any other questions other than that? Sure.
I think, I mean, another one of the purposes of the neighborhood association is to be the eyes and the ears
Right.
for the fire department and the police department.
Right.
So when we see things that are out of the ordinary, if we're not sure, probably the first order of business would be to call 911,
Mhm.
right?
If you're unsure and you want to report it to, and something seems off, then call 911 and they'll be able to ask the questions that will classify the response type.
Yeah.
But I wouldn't ever discourage someone if they feel like they need to call 911 to call 911. Yeah?
What's the city's policy on transients taking up residence in parks and areas? I mean, if we're during the day walking and off an hour, we run across an area that's tucked in somewhere that looks like somebody's living there.
Uh-huh.
What's
So like they have a tent set up, so let's say the basketball court right up here, and you have the wooded area.
Yeah, not
and it's
necessarily a tent, more like undercut, you can see underneath the branches of trees where there's a little campfire and bedroll or whatever.
Sure. So what,
Fires are bad.
So what we're trying to do is we're trying to reach out with our co-ed unit, the community outreach and enforcement team, and try and make contact with those people in a non-criminal first contact to see if they would need any kind of help with finding shelter, finding treatment, or resources, right?
Okay.
That would be the ideal, and then we can maybe line them up with some resources, either housing or drug treatment, depending on what their situation is. If they refuse that help and they refuse to leave city property, then we want to stair step it. So we want to see if we can move them along, and if that doesn't work, then we'll start citing because they'll be trespassing and that kind of thing.
Okay.
But we don't want to be hard-handed first, right? We want to try and see if they need help with those resources, and then we'll take it from there, and if it escalates, it escalates. That's what we try to do on city parks and that kind of thing. And then we have the park department, and here's the other interesting piece is, if it's a city park, then typically the first response is from either the co-ed unit or the park ranger. Usually handle all their park stuff. If they are overloaded or if it's something that they don't typically deal with, then the police will try and make contact with them and see what's going on. Does that answer your question?
Sure, yeah, fair
Okay.
enough.
If you have follow-ups, go ahead. I'll try to do the best I can. Okay.
Great.
Anybody else? Okay. All right. Thanks,
I know you
guys.
guys are busy, so thank you for being here.
And you can also, I'm sorry. You can also use the online tool instead of just reporting crimes. There's crime tips. So if you have hey, I've seen this particular car in this spot, and it's kind of, you can submit some info and it'll get to us as far as we'll check it out and that kind of stuff. Okay?
Thank you.
I just want to say something.
Yeah.
I noticed all the cars are gone out of Glenwood now.
Oh yeah?
That van.
Yeah. The
and this
motorhome.
car.
Motorhome.
Yeah, oh,
gone.
I know. I'll
Yeah.
tell you about that motorhome.
Okay.
I know about that motorhome. It was a residence,
Oh,
so.
okay.
Good deal. Thank you very much.
Thanks again.
Yeah, take care.
Yeah.
Would you like to say a few words, sir? The new fire chief is, I don't know whether this is voluntary or compulsory for you guys to be here, but
Well, it's voluntary, of course.
anyway,
So I'm not the new fire chief. My name's Bob Edgesdale. I'm a battalion chief here at Station 1 out on Rucker, but the whole city is the jurisdiction of the fire department, so we're very concerned about all areas of the city and all neighborhoods. So I don't really have anything prepared, so I'm certainly willing to take any questions. And then I could just also offer maybe a few tips for the winter, just based on the types of calls that we go on this time of year, particularly with regard to fire and safety. So, and I'm just kind of flying off the top of my head, but some of the things that we see an increase of fires sometimes in the winter, and one of the areas that we see fires is when people put combustibles too close to heaters, and it could be particularly those wall heaters, the electric heaters, baseboard type heaters, or perhaps even like a plug-in portable heater. And so we want you to keep combustibles clear of that. Don't shove your bed up against a heater because it'll develop heat and it can start a fire. So we do see quite a few of those. Something else that people do in the winter that they don't necessarily do as much other times of year is they have candles. And candles are just a perfect source of a flame that if anything gets near them or the candle melts down and then pours on the floor or pours over onto something, it can start a fire as well. And so we do, or it's too close to curtains or something like that. So we do see a fair number of those. We also see a lot of cooking fires, and we see those year round, but typically they're caused either by combustibles too close to the stove, like piling stuff up on either side of the stove, or somebody puts something on the stove and then they leave and forget about it, and then it'll catch the cabinets on fire. And if we get there and put it out even before it catches the cabinets on fire, it really stinks up the house and makes a big mess. So don't leave stuff unattended on the stove because you will forget about it. And we see it happens every day. Something else that happens in the winter and when the power goes out, sometimes people have generators. And so you have to be very careful that your generator is outside and the exhaust for your generator is exhausting outside and it's not recirculating back into your house. It's not near any of your intakes because it produces carbon monoxide and that becomes very deadly. So we've had some pretty significant tragedies where people have run generators in their garage thinking that it's okay. It's an attached garage and carbon monoxide is one of those things that can sneak up on you and you just kind of go to sleep and you never wake up. Also running vehicles or any other kind of, one thing that people used to do is they bring in like Coleman lanterns and Coleman stoves, like if the power was out, maybe there was a windstorm. If you use the ones that have, they use white gas, the liquid gas, those produce carbon monoxide and they're not designed to be used inside. So just make sure you're using your appliances appropriately. The best sources of light for when the power goes out are, they make lanterns that run on batteries and they last for a really long time. They're running on LED batteries and they'll run for hours and hours and hours and they're very safe. So those are kind of the top big ones. What did I miss?
If you do the deep frying, like deep fried turkeys, things like that, where you have like just deep frying, the oil sometimes can get on fire. So some people might accidentally try to throw water on that, and that splashes and makes a big mess, burns you and spreads fire. Better thing is just to cover it, either just with a lid, or that's the best thing. Turn off the heat and cover it with a lid.
Put a lid on it. And I would also suggest have an extinguisher in your house, mount it somewhere on the road to exit, right? So you got a fire on the stove, if you can put the lid on it, great. If it's something that you can't put out with a lid, putting water on oil, what it does is it flashes to steam, which throws that oil up in the air and causes it to light on fire, and you'll get a fireball on your face. So it makes it worse. So go to your extinguisher, and if it looks like it's too big to fight, now you can go outside. You're not going deeper into your house to get your extinguisher, and now you're trapped because fire spreads very quickly. So another thing to just kind of be on the alert for are overloaded extension cords. Those little cheapy dollar store extension cords, if you plug a bunch of stuff that sucks a lot of juice out of those, it may not trip the breaker that it's plugged into, but it might overpower that extension cord and then heats up and it can start a fire. So a better item are those power strips that have their own breaker in them. and just be careful not to be overloading them. We recommend anything that produces heat or uses a lot of juice to plug that in directly if you can. So,
Fireplaces too.
right, so I don't know if anybody here has a fireplace, but you want to make sure you get it cleaned and inspected so that it doesn't build up carbon inside the flue, and then if you build a little bit too hot of a fire, it can actually cause a fire to be burning inside your chimney, which it's not designed to do. Fire is supposed to be down here in your fireplace. So if you get a chimney fire, we've had many instances where either through radiant heat or through cracks that got into like the attic or some concealed space in the house and became a big problem and started a house fire. So make sure you get, if you're going to use your fireplace or wood stove, make sure you're getting your flue cleaned and inspected. So make sure it's all working properly. So those are just a few of the messages for the winter. I can just take any quick questions that you have. Anybody has anything?
I went through the Facebook thing from a long time ago when we were going to have fire, and some of the old questions that the three that came up were, do you guys carry Narcan? That was a question somebody posted.
Does everybody know what Narcan is? I think most people do now. We carry Narcan. We have ever since I've been here, which is 27 years. The police now carry it because it's a drug that can be administered, and it typically doesn't cause harm, but it does work well if somebody's experienced a heroin overdose. So it's being used probably on a daily basis as ever. The amount of heroin overdoses we're experiencing currently is much greater than we ever had in the past. We've always had them to some degree, but not like now.
And what's the average response time for Everett, and how's it compare to Seattle?
I can't say that I know the answer to that. Seattle Fire Department, every fire department's a little bit different, but we're kind of built on the same principles, where you have fire stations positioned so that first in fire engine with water and hose and personnel can get to your house within a reasonable response time. I'm not going to say that I know exactly what it is on average. They do publish that in our annual report, so they have, and that's viewable online on our website. So,
Okay.
but it depends on where you live and how close you are to a fire station. I'm guessing that this neighborhood, this is probably your fire station. So if they're not on another call, then you can probably get an idea about how long it would take the fire engine to get to your house. And that would be, if there was a house fire, it wouldn't be just this engine that was coming. It would be at least 3 or 4 other engines plus a ladder truck and a couple other support units, because it takes quite a few firefighters to handle all the different tasks that go into fighting a fire, like a structure fire at a house, and even more if it was a commercial building. If it's an aid response for emergencies, everybody on all of our rigs is trained at least to the EMT level, and then we also have paramedic units as well. So if somebody's having a heart attack at their house in your neighborhood, you would most likely have a first response from this engine 4, and either medic 5 coming from station 5 over on Madison, or medic 1 from station 1 on Rucker. And then if somebody goes into cardiac arrest, so that would be like for a chest pain or something, cardiac arrest, we send an additional unit because it requires more personnel to do CPR and all the different things that it takes to revive somebody that's had.
Perfect segue. The last question, and these are a little bit dated questions, I'm sorry, but the last one was, are you guys offering a babysitting CPR first aid classes? And I don't know, does the fire department do that? Somebody asked that question a long time ago.
So I know we offer through the Medic One Foundation, and I know the American Red Cross offers CPR locally, but and I know we have folks that instruct, but unfortunately it's not something that I've been personally involved with, so I'm not super familiar with it, but I'm sure that on our website, if you look on there, it'll connect you with CPR classes.
Yeah,
Campfire office offers babysitting classes.
yeah.
I don't know that we do the babysitting classes, but CPR I think is part of the babysitting curriculum, because I know my
Okay.
daughter went through that. Did you have a
Getting
comment?
back to the average response times, it does depend what type of call it was. So she basically went over the different types of responses we have, but there are also really acute calls that are very time sensitive, such as the ones we went over, where we tend to get there way quicker than the average. And then there's ones that are dispatched, they're not so acute. So, you know, if we get there in 10 minutes, that's, I think, our cutoff, like, you should get there within 10 minutes.
Yeah, and we respond differently. If it's emergency or a potential emergency, we'll respond with lights and sirens. But if it comes in as, you know, somebody maybe needing an assist,
It's just up.
a service call, something that's not an emergency, then we just will drive there using, you know, following stoplights and stop signs and not going lights and sirens.
So
So,
that might affect the average time.
That's good to know, and it's good to let people know.
so anyway, yes.
I have a question. My father, he passed away a couple years ago, but when he was really sick, the fire department up in Stanwood came and helped move him from one house to another house. It's on the same property. Do you guys do stuff like that? Senior assist, I think they called it.
It really depends on, I mean, there's a lot of services in the community, and the fire department can't, just like the police department can't be that everything for everybody as much as we want to be, because there would be too much demand. So I think it's kind of on a case-by-case basis, but we certainly have many instances of being called out to assist somebody in some way or another, help them into their house, you know, because they're in a wheelchair or, but I will tell you that the calls for service and the demand on the fire department as well as the police department is just becoming ever greater and greater, and I think you see that as a community with the police and like, gee, I wish they would come out and deal with these issues like somebody stealing stuff off my porch, but because of the total demand, it makes it, they end up having to prioritize and go for the stuff that is the most emergent. For us, the things that are our highest priorities are the things that are emergencies. Somebody's in physical peril, or they have a fire, or they need rescue, or there's hazardous materials release. So I don't know if I can answer your question directly because I don't know all the details, but
Yeah, he was in hospice and they just, you know, helped with the journey and stuff and moved
Right.
him.
I know we've
It
done
was
that
really
many times.
appreciated.
Yeah,
We've done that, yeah.
right. One of the ones that actually, it was, I don't remember what fire department it was, but it was a fire department that, there was a park ranger that was kind of at the end of his life, and he just wanted to go out into the woods. And so the fire department took him out into the woods so he could be there before he passed away, and that was just a pretty amazing thing. So I would love to be a part of something like that, and so anyway, we're here to serve you. You know, just like the police and every other service, we don't have unlimited ability to do everything, but so we prioritize, but we're certainly at the service of the citizens, and we want to give you the best service possible.
And we would like to thank you for passing that levy so we can do this.
You know, the two thank yous for sure is the EMS levy, which is vital to us being able to provide, I think, the service that the citizens expect, and also the countywide radio. I don't know, it was a levy. So with that's allowing the entire county to replace and update all of our radios so that they're up to current standards, and it's been a long time, so it was really needed. The citizens supported that, and we want to thank you for that. So it's been a pleasure being here with you, and I look forward to seeing you again.
We haven't had anybody from the fire station really get up and speak to us before that I can ever remember, so you get an award for being the first.
Thank you.
There's a lot of pent-up demand. Thank you.